Okay, welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard. Hopefully my sound is doing okay. We had a few gremlins, but I think we're good now. I think we are on. Um, I'm joined tonight, special guest, Brent, my guy Brent from Pewtercast. Brent, how are you doing tonight? I know it's been a really slow off season and not a lot going on, but you've been able to make some things happen. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing really pretty good, man. It's as you said, it's been a slow off season. It's just kind of waiting on camp to get here, It's that's really all it is. Well, just waiting,
Yeah,
man, hanging out.
and to the people out there that check out the show, I apologize. There just hasn't been anything really to talk about. I don't want to rehash what you're hearing in the media. I don't want to rehash what any of the Civil War talking points, as I call it, the Buccaneer Civil War talking points. I'm not trying to incite any fighting or anything like that. But I'm just kind of waiting to see what this team is going to do. So yeah, I know I've mentioned this before. I haven't really got to talk with you, Brent, about this, but when I've been coming on, I've really been trying to talk about, hey, what could potentially happen. Bruce Arians, and I know this is a subject that's near and dear to your heart, and we'll definitely be discussing this, folks. If you'll notice on the link, there is a link to the interview that Brent had. Brent, tell everybody a little bit about this. That was a great podcast, by the way, and very, very good information for Bucs fans to kind of get excited about Bruce Arians coming to town.
Yeah. So on our last episode of the Pewtercast, my co-host Ren and I got to sit down and talk with Lars Anderson. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar, that's okay. Lars is a pretty legitimate writing resume in professional football or college football. He's worked for ESPN. He's been at Bleacher Report as one of their senior writers. He's a professor of journalism at University of Alabama. He's just about to release his 10th book, and I think it's officially titled, he is the co-author of Bruce Arians' book, The Quarterback Whisperer. Now, in reading the book, the title of the book is The Quarterback Whisperer: How to Build an Elite NFL Quarterback. This book is not a how-to manual of how to build an elite level quarterback. This is Bruce Arians' autobiography. Okay. And it really should be the autobiography as told to Lars Anderson, because Lars is really, like, in normal words, I would think he's more like the ghostwriter, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
his voice is not in this. Lars sat down, had lots of conversations with BA, followed BA around for a while, got all of these stories, put them together, and then wrote as if he was BA. So it actually is more like Lars is the one who really wrote it. And he had to, and the reason I loved getting to talk to him was because this is a man who had to literally, not literally at all, figuratively, get into the mind of Bruce Arians and figure out what makes Bruce Arians tick. How does Bruce Arians think? In order to write as Bruce Arians, he had to get into that mindset. And that's what he did as he wrote this book. And it's really a fantastic book. If you guys haven't read it out there, it's a fun read. It really is. But it reads really much more like his autobiography of how has he gone through his coaching career, coaching some of the best quarterbacks. I mean, he's been coach, and I'm sure most of our listeners know this at this point, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning. He's the guy who brought Peyton Manning out of his shell. Andrew Luck. He's the guy who's gotten Andrew Luck off to the start that he's had, outside of injury stuff. He's worked with some of the other, really great quarterbacks. And, he talks about why he does things the way he does, what kind of his philosophy is. And if you're paying attention, you'll go, that's exactly what he's doing here in Tampa. Oh, now I hear what he's doing in Tampa. I see why he's doing it the way he's doing it here in Tampa. So it really gave us a lot of insight into the coach, into what we're seeing happening right here in Tampa. And honestly, as training camp approaches and fans are going to start having more access to seeing how Bruce interacts with his people, we're going to have that we're going to see what we were reading about. And so we got to talk to Lars. Lars came on and was very generous with his time. You'd ask him a question and he'd go for 6, 7, 8 minutes in an answer, which is awesome when you have an interview person who can do that,
So I have to jump in here.
Yeah.
How much tape is on the cutting room floor from that interview?
Not a ton, because I don't like to edit things very much, unless something just really goes off the rails or he kind of goes back and says, "Hey, don't do that." There are a few things. There's a few things we talked about where he said, "Hey, that's off the record. Please don't put that out there." But there's not a ton. Like what you hear in the episode pretty much is the interview for how it goes. I think it runs just under 30 minutes. I think it's about 28 minutes or so, the length of the interview. So, but yeah, it was really great to get to talk to him. If you've read the book, you'll recognize a lot of the stories that he tells.
Yeah.
And if you've heard him do other guests, other podcasts, especially back when the book first came out a couple of years ago, there's a lot of those similar stories. But if you've never heard any of them, don't go look for theirs. Just go to ours because he tells them all over again. And, this is a guy who really, he has kind of gotten caught up in the Bruce Arians, Kool-Aid, so to speak. Like he loves Bruce and he's all about Bruce, and he came out and told us, here's why book fans need to get excited about Bruce.
The one thing that I took from this interview that you guys did a great job, by the way. I really appreciated the interview. The one thing that I took from that interview is the word accountability.
Yeah.
And that's something that my expectations are through the roof on expectation. If you aren't doing what you're supposed to do, hey, you're going to get called out for it. Nobody's above being called out for it. And you get the best out of, players. And that's basically something that's been missing for a while with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know with the NFL, you hear former players talk about players policing their own locker room and, making other players better, holding people accountable. And again, I really believe that, with Bruce Arians, it all starts at the top. And when you get the players to buy in, once the players buy in, then, the fans will buy in.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take. And Tampa is well overdue for winning seasons. There's so many different conflicts, infighting, arguments, and winning covers a multitude of sins. And I really do believe that once the Bucs start winning, and it has to happen. I mean, the things that the Bucs have done over the years and finally getting it right, they have to start winning. Once they start winning, I think it changes everything, from the locker room all the way out onto the fan base. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. And I think it's something that Bruce Arians is able to do. I've heard people get cynical about saying culture change, but you look at some of the teams out there that have that winning culture and their expectations are different. We expect to go to the playoffs. I mean, and not to change sports, but you look at like the Yankees, they may not go, but they expect every year their fan base expects this team to go to the playoffs. The Patriots, their teams, their fan base, they expect their teams to go to the playoffs. So just getting in that mindset really will do wonders for this fan base that's been very long suffering over the last decade.
Yeah, I've been talking all the way back since episode 2 of the Pewtercast, and we're now going into season 4. I think we're over 200 or 300 episodes that are out at this point because we do multiple throughout the week through the season.
Yep.
All the way back in episode 2, I personally started talking about this. Now, I know different people have different takes, and if Ren was here right now, he'd be rolling his eyes going, but I believe in leadership. I believe in culture change. And I believe that some people say that winning breeds culture. I say that culture breeds winning.
I agree.
And Bruce Arians, by the way, says the same thing. It's in his book. And he does.
Great minds, right?
He does. And to what you're saying about accountability, just to give an example of that, or not accountability, I'm sorry, about getting buy-in from the players. Bruce doesn't worry about getting buy-in from the players. Not all the players.
No,
He identifies a handful of key people, at least one in each room, and he gets their buy-in. And once he gets their buy-in, the other players have the buy-in of those guys. Right. And that's a leadership principle, meaning you get the tribe leader. You get the guy who's kind of over everybody else, and they'll bring everybody along. And that's what Bruce Arians does. And, he goes out and I'm not going to go through everything that he does, but I think the coolest thing he does, and we talked about this in the interview with Lars, and I didn't know this, is after every game, home game anyway, Bruce Arians hosts a tailgate out of his trunk. Now, it's a post-game tailgate, and anybody's welcome to come from the other team, to this team, win or lose. They have the tailgate. He's a former bartender, so this guy's out there. He's not just pouring the drinks; he's mixing them. You know what I mean? And I kind of said, and I don't want Buck fans to do this because I don't want to ruin that for everybody. But I really wonder if you just hung around long enough, like, could you crash the tailgate? I don't know. I don't know how player coach parking works in Round Ragey. I've never looked at it. I don't think it's behind some cage though. So I'll be interested to see how that works. This year.
It should be really interesting to see how that all goes. Sure. And I don't think we've gotten to talk. Have we gotten to talk very much since the off season?
No, I mean, you and I have had some personal texts back and forth, and there was a time I came out to Arizona and saw you, but not in this format, not really. No.
Okay, well, I want to get your thoughts on the process from free agency to where we are now. How do you feel about how everything has progressed from Dirk Cutter getting fired up to where we are now? How any highlights in there of man, the light bulb came on. Hey, that's amazing, and I like that, and I think that's going to be a good move.
Well, I mean, honestly, the big one, and it's kind of the topic we've already been talking about a little bit tonight, is the hiring of Bruce Arians. With Dirk Cutter, I think it was Derek from What the Buck came on our show. I don't know, November of last year or something like that. I was out and Ren had him on, and they said, look, at this point, either the Glazers need to come out and say, hey, this is Dirk Cutter's job and he's got it for the next 3 years. Let's put away all this talk about whether or not he's going to stick around or not. They either needed to endorse him
or not,
or they needed to fire him. It needed to be one of the two. We needed that kind of finality to it. Right. And I wholeheartedly agreed with that. And, I at that point, I was very much off the Dirk Cutter train. So I was okay. I think we all knew he was getting fired. It just had to happen at that point, and when they were able to go get Bruce Arians, I think everything this offseason has happened because that's the way it had to happen, if that makes sense. Jason Light got to keep his job because he was probably the only one who could bring in Bruce Arians.
Right.
They wanted to get Bruce Arians. They got Bruce Arians. That's awesome. The coaching staff that has come on with Bruce Arians, I think, is great. I love the idea that he's got they're all teachers, every single one of them. And some of them are former players. Some of them are female. All of his coordinators are African-American. He's really pulled in just this
melting pot. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And when he says, look, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, it doesn't matter where your reproductive organs are. If you can coach, you can coach. If you can teach, you can teach, and you're going to be on my staff. Right. And I love that. And I'm like, that's great. It doesn't matter if you're his son or not. Looking at you, Lovey Smith. If you can coach, you can coach, and if you can't, you can't. Can you get the job done? And so I love the coaches he's brought in, the free agency stuff. Gene, look, guys, we didn't have any money. We can't go out and land the big guy if you don't have any money. You just can't. And
to that point, I think that I would rather have players that can play the position competently, and they can play consistently.
Sure.
And they're not freelancing or playing out of position, or some of the things that we've seen over the past decade. The defense has been a liability since going back to before Raheem Morris. There have just been so many games, and I said this before, there have been so many games that the quarterback has gone out and got the lead The defense can't hold the
Yeah.
lead, and then the quarterback is blamed for blowing the game.
Sure.
So many games, and you
Sure.
can go from Josh Freeman, Mike Glennon, and on and on and on down,
And
even to
Jameis
Jameis
Winston.
Winston.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and on down the line. And
Yeah.
this is continuously happening, that the defense is a liability, but they're not being held to the same standard as the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, you win as a team, you lose as a team. And
Right.
one of the things that and again, I have very high expectations. I've been very, I don't know, reserved on any predictions or anything like that. But I will say this, with the squad that they have lined up, I believe this squad can compete with anybody in the NFL. And I've said this from day one, and I'll continue to say that. A lot of people don't like Jameis Winston for whatever reason. I think he's a good quarterback. And again, I'm going to go on record. I said this 2 years ago. I'm going to go on record saying Jameis Winston is going to break some records, and you're going to have to mention his name whether you like him or not. That's just where he's headed.
Yeah.
And I know these are individual statistics, and I really expect this team to do better overall with a competent head coach who's paying attention to detail, who's letting his coordinators do with their job, as opposed to being over them, taking the reins and
micromanaging everything.
Yeah, micromanaging everything.
Yeah.
We saw that with Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith took over from Leslie Frazier, and he called the plays. Todd Monken. I'm still convinced that Dirk Cutter called the plays right from the Steelers game on. You can tell me anything you want to, unless I heard it from their mouths. I really do believe that, just based on the play that I saw and the demeanor of the team. So I'm going to leave that alone. That's for another show. But what I like about what Bruce Arians is doing, he's delegating authority to people that he trusts, people that are teachers, people that are going to put people in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
So and I believe that Lars mentioned that in that interview, putting players in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
We haven't. How many times have we looked at the game and said, "Wow, they're not using him right. Why is Ronald Jones running in this series? Why are they running Peyton Barber now?" There was a play. There was a play last year, and it was against the Atlanta Falcons. Was it I think it was the Falcons. No, it was the Washington Redskins, where they got the safety, and they run an obvious running play, and Peyton Barber can't get any penetration.
Yeah,
and you got a safety. Plays like that, little things like that, are something that the details. That kind of goes back to what I was saying. So I don't know. I just really feel like I'm a lot more comfortable with this coach. I'm comfortable with the coaching search that the Bucs did to get Bruce Arians here. They brought in some other coaches.
Gene, did they really do a search? Like, I mean, come on, like, can we be like, remember last time when they hired Dirk Cutter? Yeah, it wasn't a search. It was Dirk Cutter's job. Like, this was basically, hey, Bruce, you want the job? If not, we'll go maybe talk to one of these other people. But Bruce,
now you have to be realistic here. They brought in a lot of coaches to interview. They really did, which we haven't seen that a lot. I mean, you can go all the way back to John Gruden. I mean, the majority of the coaches that we've got have been reactionary in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But to get somebody that actually makes sense, I thought that they did a great job with that.
Yeah, and I will tell you, this is the first coaching hire we've had since Malcolm Glazer went and got John Gruden that felt more like an intentional offensive move by the ownership group and by the general managers than we've had for any of the other people.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Getting Raheem Morris, I think, was more about they were scared to death to lose Mike Tomlin again.
Yeah.
They were reacting, I think, to that.
Because he had opportunity to go to Denver.
Sure. And then, with Greg Schiano, they were reacting to Raheem Morris and what happened there. And then Lovey, they went back the other way and trying to recapture the nostalgia. Well, that didn't work. Then they went to Dirk Cutter and they reacted to Dirk Cutter. Well, he's got a good relationship with Jameis, so it's his shot.
But I think there were talks of him possibly being a head coach somewhere else. So there that was out there in the universe. And
there were talks of Todd Monken this past year going to get a job, and I heard some people say, "Well, let's give the job to Todd Monken." And I was, but so we'll see. But I think Bruce Arians really was I wholeheartedly believe the conversations with Bruce had to have started mid-season this past year. At least they floated it out there. Now they're never going to admit it because they're not going to go out and sabotage. Bruce said, "Hey, the only job I'm interested right now is the Cleveland Browns." Well, guess what? Cleveland Browns were the only ones who had an opening at the time.
Right.
He's not going to tell
what
you.
What else can he say?
Exactly. So, I think the opportunity was there. I think they knew that they were going to get Bruce, or at least they could. I think they dotted their I's and crossed their T's. They got the search firm, which I think helped legitimize some things for them. And they went out and got Bruce. And at the end of the day, I've seen so many people say this. We've said it on our show. Trevor has said it a few times, I think, in Twitter, to remember when you start looking at the offseason for Tampa Bay won the offseason with its coaching hire.
They win every year.
But with the coaching hire, you know what I mean?
Like
we won with the coaching hire. It's not with the free agents that did or did not come in as Band-Aids. And, hey, by the way, you bring in a bunch of these guys on one-year contracts, guess what? They're not comfortable. And Bruce talks about that in his book. Let's bring this back to the book. You don't want people getting too comfortable. They've got to be a little bit scared. They've got to be a little bit nervous. They need to be a little bit scared of their head coach. We all saw the All or Nothing where he cut somebody from an NFL team because he parked in the wrong spot.
What was it, like a lack of respect or something like that?
Yeah. It was something like that. Now, I mean, obviously I think this was a low rung player, that was probably a bottom roster churner. He wasn't a high dollar guy, but still, like, that was at least that's what they showed on the show, that he cut him because he parked in the wrong spot. So, Bruce Arians is going to hold his account. And one of the things he talks about is when he doesn't like to yell at his quarterback. Now, Bruce Arians likes to yell. Like, we've all seen that, right? He loves to yell, but he doesn't like to yell at his quarterback. Instead,
their psyche?
Huh?
What does it mess with their psyche?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't like to yell at the quarterback, but he does. But in order to yell at the quarterback, what he does is he turns around and he yells at the backup quarterback. And he yells it in a manner loud enough for the starting quarterback to hear it and get the message.
There
you know what I mean? Like,
good with that.
And you do that. And by the way, speaking of quarterbacks and stuff, the Blaine Gabbert signing of bringing him in is 100% a Bruce Arians thing to do.
Right.
He brings in a guy who is kind of that journeyman. He's a little bit older, a little bit more veteran. He knows the system so that he can train and coach the other guy.
Right.
I promise you, folks, promise you, as you go into training camp, Blaine Gabbert will be on the 53-man roster come the end of training camp. He's not just here for this time, and then Ryan Griffin's going to be our number 2. The question in my mind is, are the Bucs going to carry 2 or 3 backup quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's going to be the question. And if they carry 2, sorry, Ryan Griffin, your time is done. If they carry 3, which he has done before, we could see Ryan Griffin yet again as a third-string quarterback. Yet again, though I got to tell you, Gene, life as a 6-year third-string quarterback in the NFL, spend your 20s in the NFL in any capacity like that, it doesn't suck, right?
Yeah, that's kind of Mike Glennon-ish if you ask me.
I mean, I want to play, don't get me wrong. I really want to play, but I mean, there are worse ways to spend your 20s.
Exactly. And I would have to say the Andre Ellington move is very similar, because you've got a guy who can help a running back like a Ronald Jones, who didn't have the best. Well, he actually had a pretty bad season, rookie season, but to get that out of his head, to go ahead and just put himself together and get out there and play, man. That's what it's all about. Have amnesia. Forget about last season. You've got a do-over. You've got a brand new coach here. And the cool thing about Bruce Arians, he's not married to any of these players, with the exception of the draft picks that he may have. With that being said, and Jameis. We can't forget about Jameis.
Right.
The one thing that I can say about this move that I really like is all these guys are going to be held accountable. Nobody's going to get a pass.
Right.
You can't be out there like We saw players like Quan Alexander freelancing in that game against the Bears, playing out of position, trying to double team, not doing what he was assigned to do.
Sure,
And it
but
made
Gene,
things,
if you're playing in a Mike Smith defense like that all the dang time, don't you think you just say, screw the play? I'm just going to go out and do what I need to do. Find the ball and go, because this is a BS way to play. I would love to be able to have a frank conversation with Quan Alexander on the backside of his career in Tampa now. You
may get a chance.
Oh man, that'd be great. Hey, listen, we're working for
it. The Niners are coming to town. You may get a chance.
I might go hang outside their locker room.
You know what? And that's something I've thought about. That's the game I'm really kind of eyeballing that game. I would love to go to the hotel and just be able to just chop it up with him, even if it's for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes of his time, just to know, just to see where his head is,
Yeah.
Because so much has happened. And oh man, I don't know. It's frustrating when you look back on all these years. You're like, okay, this is our year. This is our year. This is our year. This is our year. And we've got this guy. This guy's going to help us do this. And nothing ever happens here. And then you kind of, it all starts at the top and works its way down. You look at the general manager, what the general manager's doing. Again, a lot of people, and you listeners know, if you're following me on Twitter, there have been people that have come after me because I haven't said anything too negative about Jason Light. I may get frustrated here and there, but I've never said anything too negative about Jason Light because his body of work is not complete. Now, a name that, and I'm not trying to spark controversy, but I look at Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy's body of work here in Tampa is finished. So I can look from beginning to end. I can look at the max contract that he got to the time he left, and I can look at what he accomplished in that time and form an opinion.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, when I look at like Jason Light has done some things that have been good, have been positive. He's done some things that I'm like, what the hell was this guy thinking about? So it's been hit and miss. But with any general manager, that's what you're going to run into, is hit and miss, because that's just the nature of the game. But what I will say is that, until Jason Light is gone, I'm just, okay, this is what he's doing. Okay, I get it. Let's see what happens. And I don't know. Everybody looks at the game differently. But again, for me, until I can look at your body of work and say, okay, this is what you did from start to finish, I can compare you to this guy. I can compare you to Rich McKay. I can compare you to Bruce Allen. I can compare you to Mark Dominic now, because your time is done here, and this is what you were able to accomplish in that time that you were here.
Yeah, and I mean, Gene, that's fair. I really do. I think that I have been guilty of maybe overhyping Jason Light a little bit. I mean, make no mistake, this is his roster.
Right.
I think there's currently one remaining player that was not his guy.
Levante.
No, there's going to be more than that. It's Levante. DeMar Dotson was not his guy. I was thinking DeMar, but you're right. Levante was under the old guy too. But there's not many. I mean, you count them on one hand. The rest of these guys, these are all Jason Light guys. Now, whether it was Lovey or Jay, and even a lot of Lovey's guys are gone. So, these are Jason Light's guys. Now, Jason Light doesn't make choices in a vacuum. No. And it has all been through the filter lately of Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith and those guys. And here recently, it has been through the filter of Bruce Arians. So, the question is really going to be,
Will Golston. Thank you, Tim. Tim 2902. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, Will Golston is was Will Golston brought in under Dominic?
I think he was a Dominic guy.
Extended him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which and here's the thing that when you judge a GM, I have a hard time looking back on the end and seeing how a player turned out and judging whether or not the GM made the right choice. You have to, I personally believe, you have to judge a GM's choice based on the information that they had at the time they made that choice. You know what I mean? Because GM can't look into the future any more than you or I can. Right?
Absolutely. You're drafting
injuries,
you're drafting or bringing in on potential. Based on potential.
Injuries, whether somebody just goes out and does something stupid, car accidents, You know,
ASJ.
yeah, I mean,
Great
you know,
example.
they have substance abuse problems, which, you know, we've had more than one of those here on this team, as it's turned out, and has
Yeah.
accounted for some really weird seasons that you're going, why did he have a bad season? We thought he was going to be really good, and it turns out it was a substance abuse problem. And the team has done right by not broadcasting it, you know. So,
Right.
but I think at the end of the day, you have to judge based on the information that they had at the time, you know. And Jason Lights had some really great steals that turned out amazing. I think he's made some really good decisions. And what brought this to mind was the Will Golston thing.
Right.
You know, Will Golston came off of a pretty damn good season, got his contract extension, and he hasn't done crap since. Okay. Does that mean that Jason Light shouldn't have given Golston the contract extension when he did? No. He made the best decision based on what, you know, on that information he had at the time.
And let me jump in here right quick.
Sure.
Does coaching fall into this?
Absolutely,
you know,
it does.
What I always have to catch myself when I'm talking about players or the team as a whole is, wow, was it coaching or was it the players or what was it? I think this year is going to answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a good season, and it's going to make you ask that question, well, you know, it really will make you think a little bit more. Was it coaching or was it the players? The one thing that the Bucs have been very unfortunate with is injuries. I think injuries have really just followed the Bucs for years. And I mean, going back to 09, just year after year after year, catastrophic injuries to players that are supposed to come in and help this team as a whole. So I realize at the NFL you're going to have injuries, but just not to the degree that the Bucs have had.
You know, I'm not going to be the guy that goes and does this research, but like if our friend Corey over at the Play Reaction or James over at Mr. Bucks Nation or somebody out there who likes to run stats, I'd be interested to know how Tampa Bay's history of stats, let's just say over the last 3 years during the Dirk Cutter regime, just as a sample size, how their injuries have stacked up at key positions against other teams in the NFL.
That would be interesting.
I'm not going to go do that research. I promise you. No. But because what you're talking about there, Gene, is something that we often talk about on our show. We're hyper focused on the Buccaneers. Right. So every interception is magnified. Every injury gets magnified. All of these things get magnified. You know, how they release a player, the good or the bad side of it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that or didn't do that for that player. And I'm not trying to stir up controversy, but you sit back and go, yeah, isn't that kind of how it's done around the league though? Yeah. Like, it's not just these guys. Like, so I'd be interested to know on an injury level. And I'm not saying that I doubt you. I'm just curious what those numbers would look like. Like, has Tampa Bay been overly bitten by the injury bug?
And this is what brings this up to me. Every time there's a free agent that's brought in, I'm trying to think of, other than JPP.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a
broke
free
his back in a car accident now.
Yeah. But for a whole season, you get a free agent that comes in. How often do they get to play all 16?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of, and just try to think of a free agent
Brian Anger. I think Brian Anger played 36 games that he was here for.
Okay. Jensen would have been the other one. I think
he played all 16.
I believe he did.
Yeah.
But
I think Bo Allen was out a little bit. Vin Curry was out a little bit.
Yep.
Deshaun Jackson was out a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the big guys that we had signed. Yeah, that's fair.
And who was the defensive lineman from the Giants that came to Tampa? Somebody help me out here. No, not JPP.
From the Giants?
Was it Ayers?
Robert Ayers?
Was it Robert Ayers?
Robert Ayers? Did he come from the Giants? Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Brent Grimes in 16 led the league in pass breakups with 26. Just players that have come here that, I mean, going back to Johnson, wasn't it Johnson that came from the Bengals? He ended up getting nicked up and he couldn't He was never 100% in Tampa.
Right.
I'm not making excuses for him, but he's just never been 100% in Tampa. And it's just stuff like that, little things like that. You know, you bring these guys in, the fans have expectations. Okay, this guy is going to go out and help this team win. And then you're looking at this guy on the sidelines, and you know, your players are going out there and they're getting beat. So
you know the one that gets me though, Gene, is when we have players come in and we have draft picks that come out and we've got free agents that we've signed. And I'm thinking specifically, I think it was 2 years ago, where we saw it was the year we got Deshaun Jackson, and we're all sitting here going, man, this offense is going to be unstoppable because the word was who you going to cover, right? It's you got Mike Evans, and we got Deshaun Jackson, and then we've got Chris Godwin, and then we've got Cam Brate, and now we've got OJ Howard, and then we've got Adam Humphries. Well, who are you going to cover? You can't cover them all. Who are you going to cover? Somebody's going to be open, and we're going to split the seam down the wide. Now, all of those guys mostly stayed available that whole season.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, and so much so that if one or two went out for some games, I can't even think about it off the top of my head. And it doesn't matter because you still had the other four guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
the offense was loaded.
Turns out we didn't do crap that year. You know, like turns out who you can cover. It doesn't matter because we're not going to be able to hit them anyway.
That was a 5-win season.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter because we're not going to be able to do anything anyway. So, you know, that's the one that is the most infuriating to me. You know, guys come in, they get injured. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't like it. But when they stay healthy, and we have you talk about the fan expectation,
right?
And they don't, you know, it just completely dissolves and obliterates. And you know, I personally do. You know, some people think it's foolish to do so. You have to start looking at the coaching. You have to start looking at what's there.
Yeah.
At some point, you've got to look at the GM. At some point, you've got to look at the ownership. Although I think each of those striations, the further you get away from the players, the people that are on the field, the less and less it matters. You know
what? I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna say this, and shout out to all my Manchester United friends out there. You talk to the Manchester United, and I'm telling you what, the Glazers
out.
The Glazers are not getting invited to Christmas dinner over in the UK. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You're right. And again, you have to, it has to start somewhere. Remember Tony Dungy?
Yeah.
Tony Dungy coming into Tampa, and Tampa was dismissed on so many different levels.
Sure.
You got the players to buy in. Once the players bought in, then you had the fans that were buying in.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful thing to see, just how that all progressed to where it was.
And here's the thing with Bucs fans, I think we need to learn this lesson. And I don't want to say temper our expectations for this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Jane, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but you're right. Because Tony came in and he did not have a stellar first season.
Oh, absolutely.
It took some time to get it going. Okay, go all the way back to before with our first coach in John McKay.
Mm-hmm.
We go near winless for 2 whole seasons. Right? Like we started as laughing stocks of the league.
Right.
Right. And then we come in year 2 when we win. The only games we won were the last 2 games of the year. And then we come out in year 3 and we have a pretty respectable year 3. And by year 4, okay, this is John McKay. People have started to buy in. It took time. It took time to get things where they needed to be. They started to buy in. And by year 4, we're looking at the NFC Championship game.
Right.
Right. And then we go in for a contract sign with Doug Williams. They let him go, which was dumb on their part. And it sets us up for 15 years of losing until Tony Dungy comes in.
Right.
Takes him some time, and he gets it going. Bruce Arians is walking into actually a fairly decent situation, a really decent situation. We expect them to win a little bit sooner than what these guys have. But at the same time, you know, I'm excited to see where this team is going to go.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to buy in and start winning.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump in here right now.
Yeah.
When I look at this whole scenario, especially and we've been talking about the head coach. If you haven't guessed, I am wearing I'm rocking my Kangol because,
there you go.
We're talking about the quarterback whisperer and I am the beer whisperer. So we do share something in common, but that's for another show. We'll save that for another show. When you look at Bruce Arians was retired.
Mhm.
And for him to come to a team that they need to rebuild is outlandish.
Yeah.
And Bruce Arians being a good talent evaluator, he came in, he looked at this team. I'm sure he's been following this team. And he looked at this team and said, you know what? You've got a lot of good pieces in here. And I don't know if you remember the game. Was there was a preseason game that Bruce Arians was in the booth calling the game.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you remember this, but there were a lot of plays that he questioned. And he's like, well, I'm not sure why they're doing this.
You're talking about last year when he was
Last
when he
year,
was doing the media thing. Yeah.
yeah, when he tried to
Yeah.
be in the booth, but he was so dying to coach. It
Right.
was just oozing out of him. It was
Right.
against the Lions. That all hands, thank you for that. All hands galley is right. It was against the Lions. And you could hear him, and he's looking at this game, and he's like, I don't know why are they doing that? I'm not sure. But listen, I'm gonna tell you what, man.
You make me want to go back and watch that game, Gene.
Yeah.
Like, find it on Game Pass and just watch it. I'm now interested in that.
You really should, because if you listen to Bruce Arians, he's trying to figure out what the hell Mike Smith is doing, or why is Mike Smith running this play? And I
Right.
swear to God, he does this and he catches himself, or somebody from the truck said, "Hey, you need to cut that out, man. Don't be doing that." But
Right.
in one way, shape, or form, he was like, "Okay, that's not." But I promise you, he would not have come out of retirement to a team that is rebuilding. If they're
Right.
reloading and they need a few pieces and they put some pieces in place,
Mhm.
I get it. And that's what's exciting, is that he looked at Tampa and said, you know what? This is a team that I can really work with here, and we've got some pieces in place,
Yeah.
and this won't take a lot of rebuilding.
Yeah, and that Lars talked to us a little bit about that. Maybe it was more off air. I don't remember if it was in the interview or not. Maybe that's part of the cutting room floor you asked me about. But there really is this thing of, listen, if Bruce sees something here, given his track record, maybe he was talking more specifically about Jameis. He might have been talking about Jameis specifically. But when Bruce sees something, that can pull him, can change that mind, can make him go do something to give him that other opportunity, something that he's excited about. We should get excited about that too. Like there's an old thing I used to teach people, like, hey, if you want to know what the right thing is to be like, if you're in like a manager, if you're like a trainee manager or something, watch the eyes of the person you're following. Look and see what they're looking at. Look and see where they're going, like, to get and see what, somebody who's doing it really well. If you were looking at Bruce Arians, who's a guy is an accomplished coach. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 2 times AP Coach of the Year. He's got a Super Bowl ring. He's been there. His resume is legit, as we say. If he looks over at Tampa and goes, I can work with that, I can go play there, we should be looking at that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing, Gene. I think you and
Uh-oh, did I lose him? Okay, I'm not sure what happened here. We lost
no.
Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, you're back.
Oh, wow, I don't know what happened, but sorry for that. I don't know what happened. It just dipped out on me.
Go ahead. You were on a roll, man. Get back in there. You were doing good.
If we're looking at if Bruce Arians, my point is, if Bruce looks over and sees something here, then we should be like, yeah, there's something here. And you and I, Gene, I think we're in a similar spot of sort of this, like, hey, I need them to prove it to me. Like, before I get too overly excited, and before I get out there and start pumping my chest and getting in the chat rooms on Facebook and be like, yeah, Bucs gonna dominate this year, baby. Like I'm not there yet. As a fan, I'm speaking completely as a fan for my own personal taste. If you guys are out there, you guys are listening, and that's where you are, awesome. I'm just not there yet. But before I get there, I need to see something. I need to see them put it on the field, because, listen, for the last bunch of years, the Buccaneers have had all the talent in the world. Right? Like, the reason why Dirk Cutter is not here is not just because they went 5-11 2 years in a row. They went 5-11 2 years in a row, and there's no excuse for it.
They were underachieving.
There's no excuse for it. There's none. The talent that we had on this team, the money that they were spending on this team, the facilities they gave this team, the training they gave this team, there's no reason they should have lost. That's why Dirk Cutter's not here. But when Bruce Arians comes in, he can do this. Gene, I am excited about what Bruce Arians could do. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Again, I'm getting there. Like I said, the one thing, DeTwan Davis gives you a shout out to Pewtercast.
What's up, man?
And thank you so much, man. The chat, once again, everybody's live in the chat as usual. Again, it just makes you excited about this team and what this team could potentially do. And I'm waiting for football season to start. I'm not getting involved in any of the arguments about former players and how good a former player is or how good a former player's jersey was or any of that stuff. Again.
Oh my God. Oh, Gene, I'm sorry. Can we talk real for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Bucs fans, Gene, Bucs fans, are we allowed to cuss on this, Gene? I don't know if we are.
Absolutely.
We have been arguing about the dumbest ass shit this off season that I've ever heard about in my 20 years as a Bucs fan.
Losing does that though.
It does. This has been the dumbest ass season, man. Oh my gosh.
I'm serious. I've walked away from arguments. I've seen some stuff and I'm like, wait, should I say anything? Because and again, this is one of those times where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get off social media so I don't say anything and just leave it alone.
That would have made you smarter than me because I got sucked into it further than I needed to.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just not going down the rabbit hole. That's just kind of where I'm at. We have a defensive tackle. A lot of people didn't like the draft pick with Vita Vea. If Vita Vea plays at even 50% of his potential this year, if he can stay healthy, this guy is a monster. This guy is a monster. I promise you, physically and speed and just what he's doing right now and being coached up by a real coach. I really have high expectations for Vita Vea. If Vita Vea can get in there and do what I think he can do, this line is going to be a problem. I'm telling you, this line will be a problem.
I said the same thing last year. In fact, what I said last year was, what Jason Light did was he went out and he got 2 starting caliber defensive lines. And well, let's see how that looked out. I got to tell you though, I look at all the linebackers that we're bringing into this team, and a lot of people say, "Oh, we're going to go 4-3 or whatever." Man, there's sometimes where I'm kind of sitting back looking at this line going, maybe what we're really doing is we're moving to a 1-6. And that 1 is going to be Vita. And then everybody else is packed in around him. I'm sure that's not a legit defensive scheme, but it almost seems that way with the way we're building this roster right now.
But I think the one, and I'm not being an apologist. I'm just realistically talking about this here.
Yeah.
Vita Vea was injured through preseason. He was injured through 6 games of the regular season, something like that.
Yeah. So I think he came back week 8.
He came back,
whatever that was. Yeah.
Think about this. Where he was at the end of the season is where he probably should have been at game 6 of the season if he had not gotten injured. Just think about that and where he was as a rookie, learning the speed of the game, learning how to throw offensive linemen around, learning how to chase down running backs and tight ends. And we saw a lot of that. And again, there are certain players that I'm looking for, and he's one of those players that I'm looking for to see what he's capable of doing. I think Vita Vea is a guy that I'm going to be really watching. Vernon Hargraves is another guy that I'll be really watching to see, was this a wasted pick or is this guy talented and he was just not being used correctly? And Ronald Jones is the third guy that I will be watching in the preseason just to see what these guys can do. And Ndamukong Suh, he's got that mentality. You know what you're getting from him. I'm not too worried about him. And, we talked about JPP. I think you mentioned his name just a few minutes ago. Here's a guy that if he comes back in, it's an added bonus. I really believe that this team has a lot of talent on here. And if they play collectively as a team, 4 quarters of football, I don't see a team that they can't beat on that schedule.
Man, I said this earlier. I'll say it again. I said the same thing last year.
Understood.
You know, I mean,
Understood.
it hasn't changed. That's the thing. And you look at it, and people have noted this, and they've noted it correctly. The squad that we're going into the 2019 season with is effectively the same squad we've had last year. For the most part, there's a few changes.
Yeah.
But for the most part, now, and most of the changes are on the defensive side of the ball now.
Right.
But for the most part, it's really the same squad we're going into.
Right.
Again, there's been some changes, but not a ton. But there's been a couple of key changes. But you're 100% right. If we play 4 quarters of football, if we play complementary football, if you know, if our coaches can put players into position to win, all the things that we've been hearing, you're right. This team has the potential to just rock the NFL.
So we'll talk offline because I really the game film. I've been watching game film.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of missed tackles. There's been a lot of fundamental mistakes that were made last year that really hurt this team. That really didn't things that didn't have to happen.
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. If you've got a coach who has an eye for detail. You've got a coach that leans on his staff to help him to make a team better. You're already better than you were last year. Okay?
Yeah.
And I can't stress that enough, because if you're a head coach, you have to worry about special teams, you have to worry about defense, you have to worry about offense. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you put in place guys that are teachers, guys that, hey, we're going to put you in this position, I know that you're going to eat off of this playing in this position. Those are the kind of coaches that you want. And you don't have to want to question your coaching staff, or you don't want to have to take things away from your coaching staff and put yourself in a position to where you have to call the plays. You don't want to have to do that. You want to pay attention to detail. You want to take care of the overall running of the team.
Yeah. And you know, you bring that up. Bruce Arians talked about it here. Lars talked about it on our show when he came in and did his interview. You know, Bruce Arians if somebody's not doing well with the play, guess what Bruce Arians is not going to do? Run that play when that person's in. You know, and I think one of the examples he used was DeMar Dotson. Like if DeMar Dotson's having trouble with this particular block on this particular play or whatever, or, you know, with this particular pass play or something, then guess what they're not doing? They're going to not keep calling that play. Versus our last coaching staff just seemed to be like, well, he screwed up on that one. Let's run it again. Let's
round peg in a square hole.
Yeah, and you know, like Gene, I heard you were on with our friends James and David over at Locked On. I think it was earlier this week, and you guys got into this conversation that Ren and I had actually had a couple of weeks ago, of how being at training camp and noticing how, like, this staff, like if a player would make a mistake, they would stop, tell them what was wrong, and make them do it again until they got it right. Which that's how you coach, right? Like,
right.
You messed that up, try it again. Hey, you messed that up. Here's how you fix it. Try it again. Okay, you got it. Now let's move on. Versus and I can tell you this because this was a conversation Ren and I had a year ago with the previous regime. They would go into camp and they would just run play. And if there was a mistake, they didn't stop and do it again. I saw that with my own eyes. I looked over at Ren and I said, hey, how come they're not like coaching these guys? Like, and like, oh, they're just getting it on tape. They're going to go back in the room and they'll fix it then. And they'll come back out and try it again tomorrow. No. And even then I just went, well, that seems dumb. Like, isn't this what practice is for? Like, you do like, you know, and at the time I was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's how they do it in the NFL. I guess, I don't know. Yeah. But, you know, so the idea that we have a coaching staff that's actually coaching the guys, and if they're not doing well with something, they're going to not call that play in the game. Like, that's part of Bruce's philosophy. Don't put people in don't ask them to do stuff they can't do.
Exactly. And you know, I've mentioned this and I keep saying this because it irked my nerves last year, the word experiment. Why are you experimenting on, like, for instance, on the offensive line?
Sure.
I've never I've never gotten past this. When I heard Dirk Cutter talk about experimenting on the offensive line, I can tell you right now, I was like, I couldn't figure it out. I've asked everybody on Twitter almost, why would you experiment with the offensive line? Your job is on the line. You could potentially lose your job, but here you are experimenting on the offensive line, potentially getting your quarterback killed because you're experimenting on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Again, it just so much incompetent coaching. And this goes back to when John Gruden was fired forward. I mean, we just haven't had a coaching staff that you can be confident in. Unless you can tell me otherwise, I cannot think of a coaching staff where you're like, wow, I think they can coach these guys up and they can get these guys where they need to be. We just have not seen it.
Yeah. And, here's the thing about Dirk Cutter specifically. And I truly believe this. And until somebody tells me that I'm wrong, that has firsthand information of the man, then I'm going to go on believing this. So you guys can do what you want with this information. But as I look and my podcast started in Dirk Cutter's first year as head coach. So I have closely observed this team through the run of Dirk Cutter specifically, right? And I really think from the Austin Seferian-Jenkins situation to what we've seen with Jameis to what we saw last year with Rojo and so many other examples, Dirk Cutter is a man who just kind of believes, look, you come in, you do your job, you go home. And if you don't do your job, then I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to get all up in your grill or anything about it. I expect you to do your job. Whether I've seen evidence to that or not, we're all men. We're all paid professionals. You come in and do your job, and whatever else you do, I don't care. Just do your job.
Right.
Okay. Which, by the way, the other phrase for that is no accountability.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's what that is. Versus Arians is coming in here going, no, you listen, every decision that you make, whether you're out on the street or you're here in the field, has got to be, how does this help me win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every decision that you make has to be focused towards that. We're all focused on this one thing. He's preaching to these guys. It's not my team, guys. It's your team. You guys take care of it. You guys get out there and set the culture and the tone for what you want to have happen on this team. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference, the key difference that I see between these two coaches. Now you can call it culture. You can call it leadership. You can call it just being a man. You can call it being a teacher. You can just call it coaching. I don't care what you call it. Okay. It's a person that comes in, knows how to lead men.
Exactly.
And get them all on the same page, get everybody moving towards the same goal at the same time in the same way.
That's exactly right. And I think that's what Tampa's been missing for a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned some of the players that I'm interested in seeing. I really wanted to kind of get your thoughts on who are some players that you are interested in seeing in this camp that you're going to like actually go and look for.
Yeah. So Ren and I are going to do this show on our episode, or at least this is one of our plans for kind of our training camp trial. So I haven't
and
fully gone through the list yet.
Folks. I'm going to have this guy on after he goes to camp, and he's going to come in and kind of give us fill us in on what he's seeing out there. But go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, and I would love to do that. Absolutely. But who I'm most interested in? This sounds so stupid. Ren would make so much fun of me if he was here. I really want to see this new kicker they got. Wow. I wouldn't say he's the most guy that I want to see, but it's the first guy that comes to my mind is all these, given the history that we've had with kickers in this team, the fact that they drafted yet another one, but all the stories we've heard about him through OTAs so far, like I want to hear the boom. Like apparently when he kicks it and they like hit the upright or something like that, like there is a sonic boom that happens. That I kind of want to see this guy. Yeah. Rojo is another one. Word on the street is, and Dirk Cutter told us last year, it had nothing to do with learning the playbook. Well, what was it? And Dirk Cutter wouldn't tell us. Right. And everything we've heard so far is Bruce Arians pumping Rojo up. By the way, you read his book. This is what he talks about. You pump them up, you build up their confidence. You do it through the media. Okay. You get that, and then when you get into training camp, guess what you do? you unleash the hounds on your people, right? Like he talks about that. Like he talks about that. And so I'm excited to see this happen. All these people that he's been Vernon Hargraves is another one. Okay. Yeah. Like these people that Bruce has been talking so glowingly about here in OTAs so far. I want to watch those guys because I think Bruce is going to rip them a new one like every single day. And I'm ready to see it. But I want to see what Vernon can do. Listen, a lot of people hate Vernon Hargraves. A lot of people think he's made of glass. He's been very injury prone over the last couple of years. Right. Mm-hmm. But he was a number 1 round pick for a reason. If he wasn't going to go to the Bucs, he would have gone to somebody else. He is a first-round draft pick for a reason. We haven't been using him. We saw some promise out of him, and I'm not talking in the slot. I'm talking on the outside corner position that he never had a chance to show, and I'm excited to see him. I do want to see this Rojo versus Peyton Barber. I just because of so many people who've said Peyton Barber's not the answer in Tampa. I want to see Peyton Barber tear it up this year. I just do, just to shut those people up.
Yeah, and then Peyton Barber can go get 1,400 yards.
Yeah,
that make me happy.
And he can go get him some big ass contract next year because BA doesn't overpay for running backs. That's fine. Right. I don't even care at this point. But I want to see Peyton Barber just light it up. I want to see Rojo get some good stuff. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on the right guard position.
Yeah.
I'm also, by the way, going to be keeping an eye on the left tackle position. Not that I think there's going to be a competition with Donovan Smith, but I do want to see how he's playing.
Yeah, I want to see how he responds to that max contract or not max contract, but that the big contract that he got.
I think
how does he respond?
I think he basically got himself a prove it deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people talk about these 1 year deals. I think it's a 3-year deal with 2 years guaranteed money. I think it's basically no, you're going to prove it to us before we give you the big contract. We'll give you 2 years, basically, prove it to us. And Donovan Smith cannot afford. You know how players get that contract and they tend to take the next year off?
Right.
Will Golston. Donovan Smith cannot afford to take this year off.
Yeah.
At all. So I want to see him. I want to see Donovan Smith, who I think has all the potential to be a great left tackle in this league, with a brand new freaking offensive line coach.
Yeah.
I think Ali Marpet, who is an animal, I want to see him with a new offensive line coach.
Yeah,
because Ali's his ukulele playing, Hawaiian shirt wearing, just chill self. Get him with somebody who can actually take him to that. Put Ali Marpet in the Pro Bowl this year. Yeah, I want to see Ryan Jensen come in and be the guy we signed him to be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I'm a Trentz's guy. I'm an offensive line guy, so I am personally going to be watching that a lot. I don't care so much about the wide receiver. I think whatever we do at wide receiver, whoever we wind up keeping, we're going to wind up cutting somebody good.
Yeah, it has to happen.
You know what I mean? And so we're gonna be great at that position. Defense, I'm just gonna have to see it when I believe. I want to see Devin White. For all the hype that has been around Devin White, I want to see Devin White.
I guess and we were talking about defense. Carl Nassib is somebody.
Yeah.
He's looking at a big contract if he balls out. I really expect to see him ball out this year.
Yeah.
I think that this is a guy that can pick up some of the slack that you're losing with JPP. Mm-hmm. I think if everything works out for him in camp, I think he's going to give himself more playing time. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a real solid year. So
hey, and if he has that year and we can get him re-signed here in Tampa, great. If he winds up becoming the next Adam Humphries, then good for him. Yeah. We got him really cheap for a couple of years.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
You know what I mean? But they'll figure that out. Listen, they didn't let anybody go this offseason. And I mean anybody that they weren't okay with letting go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I felt like Quan Alexander, I couldn't $56 million, that's a lot.
No, dude, look, they knew they wanted Devin White from the beginning. They're like, yeah, we'll offer Quan something, but we're going after Devin White.
Because
we're not going to offer Quan all this money because we got Devin White on the way.
Yeah. And this guy can cover. I mean, I actually have taken time to watch some of his film.
Yeah.
And I did not realize just how good he is in coverage. So
yeah,
I'm actually excited for him. But again, it's one of those things I want to see him under live fire. And I really won't know. I really won't know until like game 2, game 3 of preseason where we get to see a little bit of what he's capable of doing. So
It'll be something, but Gene, I would even extend that into game 2 or 3, maybe 4 of the actual season.
yeah.
When
But
you have real offense and real defense really hitting each other.
but the cool thing about this, in preseason, you get people in vanilla offenses and defenses, and it's just skill. That's all you're seeing is skill.
Yeah.
You're not seeing any of those sexy blitzes or any of that other stuff. These guys you're just seeing, okay, this is what this guy is capable of doing. You can learn a lot depending on the players and just how they play in preseason, because it's vanilla. There's no technique required. I wouldn't say no technique, but not as much technique as some of the plays out of the playbook. So
and more than off season, I think when we look at training camp, and this is what we have to be careful of. This is what I have to be careful of.
Right.
Is to remember, if you want to go out and see the defense have a really good day, guess what that means? That means our offense had a really bad day. You know what I mean? Like, and if the offense goes out and has a great day, that means the defense didn't do crap that day. And we've got to be careful to do, that can send you into the, man, I'm so excited for this, but God, these guys suck. Jameis threw 4 interceptions, but you see that Mike Edwards got 2 interceptions today. Like,
I see what you're saying.
What are you going to do? Like, now those practices we get with Miami, that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Because you get to hit somebody in a different color uniform.
Exactly. And I would also like to point out, under Dirk Cutter's regime, Mike Smith's defense every year won training camp. Almost every single day, you'd hear Dirk Cutter come to the podium at training camp and go, well, defense won the day today. Defense had a great day today. And Levante David even saying, remember that, like, I think under Mike Smith's first or second year, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is the best defense Tampa Bay has ever had, including the Super Bowl team or whatever.
Wow.
And you're like, oh, okay, Levante, cool, man. And look what we got. By the time regular season came around. So, I'm interested to see these guys in training camp. My point being, I really need to see them in games versus other teams.
Yeah, most definitely. So, this is kind of the segment. I know we're kind of winding down on the show. I know we got a late start and everything, but it's crazy. We've been over an hour, but I wanted to get these questions into you. And we're going to play this game. It's called the Hot Seat. And so basically what I do, I'll ask you 5
I'm sorry. Hold on. Noah Spence.
Oh,
Noah Spence has had a crappy couple of years. He was a guy I was very high on when he got drafted, had a great rookie season. I want to see this guy bounce back this year.
Let me say this. Do you think Noah Spence has forgotten how to play football?
No. I think the coaching staff that he's been under did him absolutely no favors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it goes back to coaching. I really do. Yeah. They're playing him in a spot that he's not really used to playing. And I think he probably got pissed, to be quite honest. How do you come out as a rookie, your dreams of being in the NFL for your entire life, and you're given what you're given with Mike Smith, and you not get pissed about it and feel like you got dealt a raw deal? You know what I mean?
Those are all valid points.
And to sit there and be like, what am I doing here? So I'm excited to see what Noah Spence could do under a new situation.
Yeah, because just his get off alone, and just his speed, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't think he was given the opportunity to really show what he can do.
Yeah.
So
again,
it'll be really exciting to see that.
Yeah. And by the way, I think you could probably say that for everybody who's been on this defense the last 3 years, and that includes the people who are no longer here.
Yeah.
As we judge some of these guys, just remember what they've been through the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm excited about the season. I'm not going to get all super overhyped, but I'm going to be watching and specific players that I'm looking for to see what they do. And again, this roster, it should be really interesting to see this roster. I believe there's talent on this team. And if they can put things together collectively as a team, I think they're going to win some games that they're not supposed to win, according to some of your other pundits out there that, follow and speak on the NFL.
Sure. I agree.
All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to play a game. I'm going to have you answer some questions. I've got 10 questions, give you a minute to answer these questions, see how you do.
Uh-oh.
And 5 of these questions are related to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
Okay.
and the other 5 are related to around the NFL.
Okay.
And if you don't know the answer, we'll pass. We'll go to the next question, and we'll just kind of see how you do, man.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to give my caveat to this, though, that I always
Okay.
do when you start talking about other teams in the NFL. I am a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan.
Absolutely.
I follow the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't follow the rest of the NFL. I just don't. Like, I
There
know
you
the
go.
big storylines. I know the big names that are out there. You know what I mean? I kind of know how it affects the Bucs, but I just put that caveat out there. I may not know.
Well,
shit.
I was pretty nice. I was very nice to you this time.
Okay.
And so basically what I've done is I've mentioned teams that you would be familiar with.
Okay.
Or maybe
Cool.
you have heard something on NFL Network.
Okay.
Or possibly teams that were in the playoffs last year. So
okay. Fair enough.
you should be familiar with everybody
Fair
I'm
enough.
talking about. I mean, I'm not going to bring up the Miami Dolphins and ask you about their offensive line or anything like that.
Or the fact that Atlanta blew a 25-point lead.
Oh yeah, we can't forget that.
Can't forget that. You just can't forget that.
Let's take a moment to talk about that. You know that the Atlanta Falcons did blow a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and I do bring you back to your regularly scheduled programming. So
I love you, Gene. You're one of my favorite people on the planet, man.
We've got that out of the way now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the timer up here, and and then I'm going to ask the first question. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask the first question and then start the timer, just to be fair.
This is a buying and selling.
Yep.
Type of
So
question, right?
and all the questions will be buying and selling.
All right.
So first question. Jameis Winston must have a breakout season in order for the Bucs to win. Buy or sell?
Sell.
All right.
Do you want to talk about it or why?
No. Next.
Okay.
Jason Light will return to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020. Buying or selling?
See question 1. It depends on that.
All right. Chris Godwin is capable of being a Pro Bowl receiver in 2019. Buying or selling?
Buy.
All right. The Bucs running game will be better than the last 3 seasons that we've had from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buy or sell?
Buy.
All right. The Oakland Raiders are playoff contenders in the AFC West.
Sell.
Cleveland Browns are overrated. Buy or sell?
Buy.
Who, according to the Pewtercast, is the best receiver in the NFL?
Mike Evans.
All right. Patrick Mahomes is a franchise quarterback.
Buy. Yeah, buy.
Will the Jacksonville Jaguars have the best defense in the NFL this year?
Sell.
Time. All right. You got them. You made it through all 10 questions.
All right, cool.
So let's go back to some of these here.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to I'm going to go back to Chris Godwin. I think it was Chris Godwin. Was that the question we were?
That was one of them, yeah.
Okay, there was one question you wanted to go back to and answer.
Oh, no. Well, no. The first question you asked me is, does Jameis have to have a breakout year in order to come back next year?
Does Jameis Winston have to have a breakout year?
And I'm going to focus on the word, does he have to have a breakout year? I don't think he has to have a breakout year. He has to have a good year. He has to have a consistent year. Jameis Winston has had fan-freaking-tastic years before now.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just not been coupled with a defense that can do shit for him and help him out. He has handed the game to the defense, and the defense couldn't hold it.
Liability.
Okay.
There you go.
You and I were talking about that earlier. I don't remember if it was on air or not. But I think if Jameis Winston can be consistent, be put into a position where he doesn't have to throw for 5,000 yards a game or a year, for the whole year. You know what I mean? I think if he can come in and be consistent, the Glazers are itching to re-sign this guy.
Yeah.
They want to he has to give them a reason to not sign, which is why I don't think he has to have a breakout year. As long as he can be consistent, I think the Glazers are going to keep Jameis around.
Oh, nice. Okay. And just kind of getting back to Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
And the reason I put this question out here, Chris Godwin was kind of, he had some drops that he should have gotten. I would venture to say that he's left at least, I would say 150, 200 yards on the field and drop balls.
Wow. Do you think that many?
I think that many. There have been times, there have been deep ball, and these are just deep balls.
All right.
And I just, do you think that if he cleans that up, that there will be enough people in the NFL that they will recognize, hey, this guy's a good receiver? And
those are two different questions. Okay, because your question was, is he capable of being a Pro Bowl receiver? And my answer is yes. He is capable of being a Pro Bowl receiver. If he cleans those up, will it get the attention of enough people in the NFL and to be Pro Bowl? That's going to be the sticking point. And the reason for that is you got to look and see, like, so in the Pro Bowl for the NFC, how many wide receivers get taken? 4?
Yeah.
5? 6? Is it 6 total?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like there's on each side of the ball, right? So 4, 5, 6. So what you're saying is does he have the potential to be a top 6 receiver, or to be one of the top number 2 receivers in the league to catch that? Is he capable? Yes, I think he's capable. Will he meet that? I'm not so sure. Just given what has to happen to get him into the Pro Bowl. So,
really? So,
but I think he's capable. I think he's capable to get into the Pro Bowl. It's such a tall order.
Yeah,
because you have so many people competing for so few slots.
Right.
That's why Ali Marpet's not been in the Pro Bowl. I'm convinced right now.
So, I mean, let's kind of look at some of you've got Michael Thomas,
right?
You got Julio Jones,
sure.
Of course, Mike Evans.
Mike
Evans has to be mentioned.
Yeah, you got AB.
Yeah, you got AB, but he's in the AFC.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
He's AFC.
Sure.
Get on the NFC side.
Yeah.
Who else? Does Minnesota have a receiver? No.
Thielen's their tight end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he a wide receiver?
He's their tight end.
He's a tight end. Okay. Yeah. Again, this is where we start going back to the
exactly.
Thing.
I'm not gonna drag you down that rabbit hole.
I have trouble remembering who's in the NFC and AFC. Like I think I've got that about 80% locked in my brain right now, but I still have issues remembering even those things. So
okay.
But yeah. I think he's capable. I think he's capable. Will he do it? I don't know. But I do think he's capable.
Again, does that come back? That comes back to coaching. I think that if you got a coach that can, and I guess he's a wide Thielen's a wide receiver. Sorry.
And he's going to be one of those. If he continues to play, he'll be one of those. So
yeah. And then again, is that coaching? Is that holding him accountable? Hey, you can't be dropping balls like that. Making him more cognizant of holding on to the ball when those passes come his way.
Sure. And some of that's coaching of, hey, here's how you hold on to the ball.
Right.
Let's run that drill. Make sure that you're holding on to the ball. Oh, by the way, let's make sure that Jameis is actually throwing you the ball to the right spot.
Yeah. Oh, Amari Cooper. Here's another guy.
Amari Cooper's another one. Yeah. So it's
AFC to NFC. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I do think that Chris Godwin is capable. I think he has the ability to at least get in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Just when we talk about his potential and how a lot of people thought he was the steal of the draft at some,
sure.
You listen to some people the way they talked about him and what how physical he is and what he's capable of doing.
I still think that for his draft class.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think he's capable. I'm not saying that he will do it. I'm just saying I think he's capable of getting there.
Yeah, and what's wild is, he's in mention on the same team with Mike Evans. So I think for him, this would be of benefit because he doesn't have all that pressure on his shoulders. He can just go out and play his game. And
do you know how hard it's got to be for one team to send 2 wide receivers to the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
Because at some point, somebody's stealing yards from the other guy.
Yeah, basically.
You know what I mean? I mean, you're stealing stats from the other guy. So
yeah, there you go. So that's very true. Well, Brent, thank you so much, man. Like I said, that the interview, guys, if you get a chance to listen to Pewtercast, they did an interview, and would we call him the ghostwriter? Or
technically, I think he's the co-author, but yeah, it's really he's more of the ghostwriter. Yeah,
yeah. I
don't think Bruce Arians ever sat down and touched a keyboard and writing this process.
He probably mixed the drinks while they were talking about what needed to get done and everything.
And I mean, we even talk about that in the interview, like what the physical way was that they wrote the book, Yeah. And so, it's in there.
So again, please, if you're not following Pewtercast, be sure to check them out. You won't be sorry. It needs to be in your rotation of Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. They're going to be doing a lot with camp, so I would really encourage you to follow them at Pewtercast on Twitter. His co-host Ren Dax will be on site for the majority of the games. I believe. Is that, am I correct in saying?
Ren will be there every day that camp is open to the public, and then we will have a couple of press pass days as well mixed in there. So
these guys are really making moves when it comes to what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers consider credential media, and it's really exciting to see this. I believe podcasts give a voice to a lot of the listeners. And speaking of the listeners, I do want to go through and do kind of a roll call. And Brent, I hope you have time for this. I do, because these guys really did, they really showed out and did their thing here. So I really appreciate him. Donnie Celeris, TC Baby, Tim 2902, All Hands Galley. Really nice guy to follow if you get a chance on Twitter. Really good guy to follow as well. He's a big Bucs fan. Seminole Buccaneer, of course, from shout out to Bucs Report. And if you guys are listening to Bucs Report, you'll find this podcast up there probably tomorrow or day after. So I'll get it up there for everybody to check out as well. DeTwan Davis, one of the guys that really gets in the chat, and he really has some really good things to say. And, again, really make you think. Keith Saunders Jr., Rex Dillon is here in Arizona with me. Huge. He's the captain of the Arizona Buckaholics. So a lot of these games on the West Coast, you definitely want to get with the Buckaholics, because those guys put together some of the best tailgates, and they do put the home team to shame sometimes when they get everybody out here to some of these tailgates. So if you're thinking about going to some of these games, Seattle, Los Angeles, or some of the other games, be sure to check out Buckaholics, whether it's on Facebook or find them on Twitter. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Jeremy St. John's, what's going on? I appreciate you. XLU Garvey, thank you. A longtime listener, somebody that always, again, comes in and they say the right things. They're bringing that football knowledge, so you're appreciated. Demand, again, one of those guys. Again, I love his content, and he brings it every time there's a show. Bucs fan 727, thank you for contributing to the chat. And I think if I miss somebody, please hit me up, and I'll definitely make sure you get mentioned the next time. Big Joe 24, thank you. And Kobe, again, thank you so much for contributing. David Villanueva, how you doing? Thank you so much for getting in the chat as well. And I think I got everybody. So when are you coming to Tampa? I will probably be there in about a month. And probably about a month. Trying to wait for this 159 degree weather to cool down that you guys are dealing with. Because at least here in Arizona, I can get in the shade and I'm all right. But you guys and that humidity, boy, you guys.
Gene, buddy, I got to tell you, I was out there in Arizona, stopped by your house, got to see you earlier this year, and I have never been so thankful for humidity after visiting that craziness that you guys have going on over there. I will take humidity all day long over the crazy dry, open up an oven and stick your head in is a literal, it's literally the most accurate description I could talk about with what you guys face over there. Just give me water in the air, please.
Dude, I'm good.
Just some. I don't need all of it. Just give me some of it.
Dude, you can sit under a shade tree and it'll cool you off. And that's the one thing, because I remember this. I remember going to play baseball, and at 5 o'clock it would start raining, and it would just, you go in and take a shower, and you come back out and you need to take a shower again. So you give and you take.
Just jump in the pool, you'll be good.
But I do miss Florida, and eventually I will get down there, guys. You'll find me at the press box when I'm there, because I love their wings, and see if I can get as many people as possible down there to kind of check out the show. I may try to do a live show there and see how that works out. So
yeah, we recorded one there. It's a cool place, man.
Yeah, I love Press
Cool
Box.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. Thank you everybody that has tuned in to listen to my madness and listen to this guy who is an accomplished journalist out of the two of us here. Very accomplished. And yeah, please, if you get a chance, follow him. He'll get you hyped for the season. I promise you. I mean, every time, like last year, what they did last year, and I can't thank you enough, providing pictures, providing what they're seeing to the fans. I mean, that's something that you can't get enough of. And again, there's so many good podcasts out there. And like his Real Bucs Talk, there's a bunch of them out there. Yeah. And you guys are all appreciated.
And hey, for whatever it is worth, Gina, I know you guys have a great relationship with the guys there at Real Bucs Talk. Actually, we do too. I just looked over and say I didn't know this. My co-host Ren is a guest on Real Bucs Talk on their show tonight, as I'm right here with you. So yeah, go check them out too.
Yeah, and again, shout out to all the Bucs fans. Listen, let's put all the division aside. We're a fan base. Let's be united. I look at other fan bases like the Saints. I look at the Carolina Panthers, and they're pretty united, to be very honest. And
yeah,
I know that winning covers a multitude of sins, and we hang in there. I think that's eventually gonna turn around for us as well. But that's it for me. Any last thoughts before I cut out of here?
Man, I just want to echo all of that. Listen, we're all Bucs fans. We're all slowly working to get the poison out, and listen, Bucs season's coming. Bucs season's coming. As much as I'm keeping a little bit of a show me deal, I guess to bring this full circle, the reason to get excited about the Buccaneers this year is because of Bruce Arians.
Yeah,
it will be different. I'm not sure how it's going to be different, but it will be different this year. That I can promise you. And I'm just excited to see what I'm excited for this next chapter to see what happens with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah,
go Bucs.
I may eat a biscuit every Sunday before the game. I just made
that's not a bad idea, Gene. That's a just a new tradition. Tailgating with biscuits.
That's right.
We're gonna eat biscuits all day long. I probably won't let us take them to the stadium. Stadium needs to have biscuits and gravy at every
that's what needs to happen.
concession stand.
It needs to happen.
We're eating biscuits.
All right.
The Biscuit Eater Podcast. That's what we're doing. That's the name of the show from now on.
There you go. Well, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody, and we are out of here.